All right, last one. Let's go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live Q&A, intermediate and advanced users. It looks like we already have one question coming in, which is great. And Champagne, we will get to you in just a moment here. I do just want to let everybody know if we could start off with a little bit of an icebreaker. Hopefully you're enjoying the event. And the goal would be that if you could just use the questions tab instead of the chat tab for any specific questions. And then in the meantime, just going to set up this audio just a tiny bit. Great. And let me know if you guys can't hear me or anything like that. Want to make sure. But yeah, in the meantime, if everybody could just chat in where they're calling in from. A lot of us here at Klaviyo sit in Boston. And again, please use the Q&A feature or the questions feature a little bit to the right of the video as opposed to the chat for any questions. And we'll get started in just a few moments. We'll let a few people join. And I just want to make sure that we make sure we get everybody in to ask the questions that they want to ask and that we get questions to everyone. And then what I'll also do is I'll start with a few pre-submitted questions. Thank you for those customers who did submit those. I have a couple ones kind of post Black Friday, Cyber Monday. What's next? How's everybody feeling? And again, if we could just let's get this chat a little bit more lively, if you don't mind, guys. Let's put in where we're calling in from, and then we will get to the question shortly. ATX, awesome. I think that's Atlanta, Frank, if I'm getting that acronym correct, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong. And ATX as well. Okay, excellent. That's great that our two attendees so far that participating. California, thank you, Nicole. That's great. Awesome, guys. Yeah, so feel free, guys. A couple other things that I'll mention, hopefully not too many times. Any questions? Boston as well, New Jersey, London, let's go. London, Pittsburgh. ATX is Austin. My bad, Frank. Oh, that's so embarrassing. I've been there. And then we do have an Atlanta right before. That's great. So one thing I'll mention a few times, make sure you're typing in your questions into the questions tab. Keep the chat lively. And what I'll do is I want to make sure that a couple things. You should be able to upvote any questions. So if you see anybody else's question that you're like, yeah, I have this too, feel free to give that a thumbs up. And also we have Miami, San Diego, New York City, Spain. Welcome, 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 Jaime. That's great. What we'll do is we'll be going through the questions in the order of how many upvotes they have. That's going to be the main scenario we have. And then any questions that we don't get to, please feel free
to hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at Klaviyo Growth afterwards. And then we're also doing this session again at 12:20. So we'll make sure we have plenty of time to answer questions, and I'll be on social media right after the event to answer your questions as they come in. So I think without further ado, we have another Boston. This is great. I am going to jump over to the questions tab. And I want to let you know that we have three other Klaviyo employees on this. We have Ashley, Ali, and David. They're all going to be helping out with the Q&A as well. So for example, if something requires a help article, I may just say, hey, David, can you paste that help article? So if I don't fully answer the question live, you'll be able to see in the chat the help article that will ideally answer that question in more depth. But without further ado, so we have our highest voted question so far from Ryan Crabb, and this is, hello, we drive customers to our website and then have a welcome pop-up with a discount code. This works well, but we often lose where they initially came from with Shopify conversion tracking. Is there a way to stop this? Great question. I can see why it's upvoted so much. And I think what I might do is actually, David, if you could put in the Shopify, like just general integration with Shopify help article. I'm not sure how much this will address this. But I think, Ryan, just confirm, we have customers to our website and have a welcome pop-up discount code. That's great. We often lose where they initially came from within Shopify conversion tracking. I think, Ryan, and I hate to take the shortcut on this, is that I think the conversion tracking isn't something that Klaviyo is going to be able to help with in a significant way. We normally point people to either Google Analytics or back to Shopify afterwards. So unfortunately, within the Klaviyo platform itself, there's a few ways that you could start to build segments of things like has been in the welcome series and has visited site where URL equals maybe homepage or something like that. But unfortunately, I don't think this is something that Klaviyo is going to be able to kind of address right away. And, you know, I'm not the best first answer here. And then let's see. So the second with 12 upvotes, this is great. Are there plans to roll out global saved blocks so that when you update a block, it updates across all flows? Shannon, this is a great question. This is one I ideally have a better answer for than Ryan's. Yes, so we are reworking the entire actual design or template builder within Klaviyo. Right now, this is a big issue, and it's something that I actually deal with myself when building out flows. So yes, this is being worked on. This will be something that we address where if you update one saved product block, it will update across templates. In the meantime, which you've probably experienced already, Shannon, it's not a great workaround, but it is a workaround. Anytime I do create a product block, I then save it, and then I can go back into the remaining emails and just pull up, you know, as long as I save it with a naming convention that I'm aware of, I can go in and relatively quickly upload those. But great question. And the answer is yes. The template builder update should be anywhere between end of Q1 and Q2. So ideally, this is coming and something that we can ideally ease a little bit of the burden on all the 14 people that upvoted this. So great question. So the next question we have is from Vlad. Thank you, Vlad. And it says, hello, Taylor. Thank you for your time. Of course, thank you guys for joining. Do you guys have any plans for implementing pictures or GIF animations as a background for some blocks in the drag and drop editor? Another great question, very in line with Shannon's actually above. This will be a new feature as well with that template builder rollout. So you will be able to start putting in GIFs. I think this is already available in our SMS features or MMS features, but currently not available, as you know, in the template builder for emails. So yes, this is something that will also be addressed in that rollout of our new design editor within emails. And there's going to be a lot of announcement around that, so you definitely won't miss it. It's probably our biggest project going forward in 2021. So thank you for that. And so let's see then. Next question we have is from Sabrina. When will you have more intuitive integration? Let me just pull this here. When we have more intuitive integrations with review apps like Judge.me, it'd be awesome to just add a block into a Klaviyo email rather than having to design directly in Judge.me. Sabrina, this is a good question. I can actually check with our tech partnerships team. I do know we roll out in like 2 or 3 integrations a month. I'm not sure where we are with things like Judge.me, but it's certainly something that if Judge.me is working with Klaviyo, we want to make sure that this is essentially as seamless as possible. But for the time being, it's not something that I believe we can do within like, you will have to continue designing those within Judge.me. It's something where I think the more customers that request this, and I'll certainly put this down in our prod pad, the more likely it is for this integration to happen. That's how we essentially build out our integrations. But I will say we do roll out new integrations essentially all the time. So I wouldn't, if this is something that is being requested frequently, it's something that's certainly on the product list. So thank you, Sabrina, for that. And let's see, then just checking the top here again. And so this one is from Cheryl around SMS. Excuse me. When might you roll out the ability to set up a back-in-stock flow using SMS? So a lot of you guys know we just recently released SMS, really well, the year's flying, but towards the beginning of this year, the first abilities or first iterations was really just SMS and campaigns. And then the second integration, let's see here. Sorry, just getting a tiny bit of technical feedback here. But either way, Cheryl, so this is also something that's going to roll out. I think our next biggest SMS feature that we're rolling out is the ability to directly respond or use it as kind of an inbox or a support scenario. So to be able to directly respond with your clients here. So I really think the main thing that we want to keep in mind is that we are continuing to make sure that the right metrics are usable within SMS. But also another one. So a common theme so far here is really like product features. And I guarantee you guys are rolling these out as soon as we can. So let's see. Next question is from Ellie here, and it will be, will there be the possibility to have dynamic blocks within the template? I.e., if the customer is existing, if it is existing customer, show block A. If it's a prospect, show block B. If I understand the question correctly, I may have either David or Ashley put in the kind of conditional or dynamic blocks link into the chat. We can do dynamic blocks based on a number of different properties. So this could be, has placed order, for example, or we might want to set up a flow that's like, if someone has placed order greater than once, then we're going to set the customer profile property as customer, and then sending out emails where people are customers versus that property doesn't exist, they will either see block A or block B. Ideally, that help article in the chat will help get a little bit more in depth. But a common use case of this already is things like, is in the UK versus the US or Australia or a different country, for example. So we might want to show has purchased X product versus Y product. So we want to show them a different product. So Ellie, if I understand the question correctly, it exists. It does take a little work to set up, but it should be something that you're actually able to do already. Great question. Thank you. Just kind of scrolling down here. And then this question is from Shannon. So currently, Yotpo has the ability to fill out forms / type a review directly in the email. Is there an exploration of survey type functionalities? Shannon, the other questions that were product related, I was very, ideally, I was very open to everybody saying that this is on the roadmap. At the moment, Shannon, this is not on the roadmap. I just want to be completely honest with you. We have a lot of great survey partners. The most recent update to forms that we just rolled out was form analytics and form A/B testing. So this is, I think, those were great product features to roll out. However, this is something that I think our forms currently are not something that is the big focus internally at Klaviyo. So I wish I had a better answer for you, like the ones that this is definitely coming. At the moment, this is not something that is currently coming. And then let's see. So Champagne, this was the first question, so I'm sorry we didn't get to it, but my website has recently gone live using WooCommerce, but add to cart and browse abandon are not being triggered. I've located the custom event code for Shopify, but where can I find it for WooCommerce? So great question. I think, David, if you don't mind putting in the browse abandonment help doc in the chat, this ideally should allow, there is a section in this Champagne where it kind of goes down. It says like Shopify, Magento, BigCommerce, WooCommerce. So there is a whole section specifically for WooCommerce, and this is for browse abandon. And then for the added to cart or placed order or any of those kind of like bigger events, if we could also then post in, David, just the integration with WooCommerce main article. This would really, so these are two different things. And actually the browse abandonment is one that gets a lot of questions because it is separate than that initial e-commerce setup. So I would definitely check back on the original WooCommerce integration. This should pull in things like added to cart, placed order, returned, things like that, fulfilled order. And then the browse abandonment will be a separate piece of code that you need to add to that site. But ideally, the help articles in the chat should be able to make you set this up relatively easily. And I'll just mention the browse abandonment requires a little bit of code. I'm not a coder, so I could probably do this, in an hour, but a dev should be able to do this in something like 5 to 10 minutes. Hopefully that helps. And this one is from Femi, excuse me. We have multiple stores. At the moment, it's not possible to have multiple stores open at the same time. Is this in your roadmap? So great question here, Femi. And if you feel like expanding upon this based on my answer, please do. We have thousands of customers that have multiple stores. And generally, if it is set up correctly, in the upper right of your account, you should be able to drop down from, I'm not going to assume this, but maybe it's like, Femi Store US, Femi Store UK, Femi Store Asia. You should be able to swap through those pretty easily if you have multiple accounts. We do generally, if you want them all within a specific portal, I think that the way that we suggest doing it is having those drop downs in the upper right. Feel free to, again, expand upon this if I'm not getting that question fully. If you don't have it set up correctly and you have to actually like log out and log back in, feel free to email support@klaviyo.com and they can make sure to really tie those together so that it's easy for yourself or any colleagues that you have to just kind of swap in, all right, I just set up a browse abandonment here. Also, one thing I should mention too is that if you did set up a flow, let's say in store 1, and you don't want to have to go through all the work of setting that up in store 2 or store 3, right into support as well. We can clone a lot of things between accounts so that you can just say, hey, easily want to get this one in these 3 stores pretty quickly, if I'm understanding that question correctly. And all right here. So next question is from RJ Spencer. And the question is, are there plans to introduce a single click for resending campaigns to non-openers, similar to how Mailchimp works? Yes, there's a help doc for generating a dynamic segment, but it's very clunky to have to make a new segment anytime we want to resend. So RJ, this is a great question. I've used Mailchimp quite a bit on the side. And the answer to this one is actually going to be just a no, because we're very concerned, we're very focused on deliverability at Klaviyo, and we don't always recommend just resending a campaign to non-openers. So it's almost like we're trying to prevent this to be something that's easily done. Generally, if people didn't open an email, we're going to assume it's that they didn't want to open that email. And so resending a campaign to those that didn't want to open it is just going to have a lower open rate. It's going to hurt your deliverability even further, or not even further, but it's going to hurt your deliverability just to resend that. Now, the only scenario where I think a lot of Klaviyo's would recommend doing a resend would be if it is like a big sale, like a Black Friday sale, a holiday sale, um, any kind of like whatever it is, Valentine's Day or July 4th, any kind of big sale like that where it is actually something that we want to resend, that we would recommend. We don't want to make it easy for just to resend every single campaign that we make to non-openers, as it's going to hurt your deliverability and therefore revenue generation in the future. But great question. This is one we get a lot, and it's almost like we're putting in our own kind of guardrails, which I understand some people are not going to be thrilled about. Um, and then let's see here. So next question we have, also from RJ, we just have a next one here. For stores that rely on drop shipping, we typically have our orders ship in multiple packages rather than all at once. Are there plans to introduce a hook that allows us to check if an order has been marked as fulfilled complete versus partially fulfilled? This way we can send fulfillment updates according to the entire order has shipped or just part of it. RJ, if I understand this question correctly, the fulfilled order metric and completed order, placed order, those metrics are pulling in from the e-commerce platform that you're on. So Shopify, WooCommerce, things like that. We will be able to pull in, but right at the moment, we pull in like fulfilled order from Shopify or WooCommerce, for example. And so what we're doing is we're trusting that that metric within Shopify is indicative of a completed fulfillment. If there is a way within Shopify or WooCommerce or Magento, whichever platform you're on, to have two separate metrics, so one is like fulfilled and one is a guaranteed fulfilled complete, then you can feel free to actually use our API or somewhat advanced integration options to get that metric also into Klaviyo. But at the moment, Klaviyo isn't generating those events, and hopefully I'm not passing the buck. We love the Shopify integration, but I think we're pulling all of these metrics in from the e-commerce platform, but we can and have the ability to pull in custom events as well. Hopefully that helps. And let's see here. I see. And so next question here is, actually, I'll hit Marissa first, and then Femi, I'll get to you. And these questions are really great, guys. Thank you. Sorry, a lot of these are kind of like it's coming, but ideally, I'm being honest about the ones that are coming and the ones that aren't, etc. So the next question here is from Marissa Sehested. When are we going to be able to run growth reports on segments and not just engagement, or not just growth reports on lists? If any of you guys are familiar with this, which I assume a lot of you are, right now we can run growth reports on lists, but we can't run growth reports on segments. This is something that has been one of the most requested features in Klaviyo since well before I joined. And Marissa, this is also one where I can say this is coming. So we just rolled out the custom analytics option, which is a new feature that people can now find over on the left in the analytics tab. And what this is this is the beginning of allowing us to build much more in-depth reports on things like segment growth, people who've completed certain metrics and the growth of those. So at the moment, another one we're unfortunately not currently available, but it is heavily requested, actively working on it in conjunction with building out that custom analytics tool. So thank you for that. And then Femi, to follow up on your question, this is just the question earlier about having multiple stores open at once. The reason for this, Femi, now that I understand it, so essentially she's wondering, she's wondering if this can be, if you can have multiple stores open in multiple tabs. The reason we can't have this is that we are very concerned about our security in terms of like double opt-in, or sorry, a double sign in, to make sure that you actually have, and a lot of people find this kind of annoying, but making sure you have to put in that code to actually get in. So we can't have them open on multiple tabs, unfortunately. More of a security issue, making sure that we keep everybody's account safe. But hopefully that drop down isn't too much of a hassle. But yeah, we can't have them open on multiple tabs. Thank you for clarifying that. The next question here is from Jeremy. Can Klaviyo tell us the size of an email template or content? If we're trying to keep an email under 102,000, can Klaviyo help us see where our template or content is too heavy, or 102K? Can Klaviyo help us see where our template or content is too heavy for full deliverability? Good question, Jeremy. I'm not sure, David, if you know the answer to this in terms of like being able to see the total size of an email. Um, we might have this functionality. And Jeremy, if you want to expand upon the 102K, if that's like the size of that like file that's going to be delivered. Um, but generally, yeah, unfortunately, Jeremy, this is one I actually don't know the answer to. Not gonna lie. I'll see if David or Ashley, if you guys know the answer to that, that would be great. Um, but yeah, I will just kind of pivot a little bit to deliverability. Generally, within the main inboxes, you're not going to have too much of a factor with things like, at Gmail, Yahoo, and some of the main ESPs. As long as you're sending to engaged segments, your deliverability should not suffer from an email that's too large. Yeah, ideally we have an answer. If not, Jeremy, definitely feel free to follow up with me on social, again, at Klaviyo Growth on Twitter, Instagram, whatever you prefer. And I'll make sure that we check with the right individuals. And I guess I should mention that everybody else too, if there's anybody that has follow up on this in terms of like, hey, that was a somewhat satisfactory answer, but we'd love you to dig in a little bit more, Taylor, feel free to holler at us on social, and we'll make sure that we don't just end this session now. We'll get back to you with everything that we can. Okay, and then let's see, just making sure I'm not getting any ones at the top here. Okay. Okay. All right, the next question here we have is, we have a lot of customers, and this is from Ellie. We have a lot of customers putting more than one order through on the same day, which is skewing our average days between orders. Would there be a way to make all orders that come through on the same day be treated as one order by the AI? It's a good question. And I believe the answer to this is no on purpose, or I don't believe. The answer to this is no on purpose. What we want to make sure is that we're tying together purchase performance with sending performance. So for example, if you send an email out in the morning and I don't know, it has a 10% discount, and someone then places an order based on that email, and then you send an email in the afternoon and that email is 15% for whatever reason, that, forgive the example, and then they make an order placed on that, we do want to still be able to tie these purchases to separate events. And so therefore, when we're looking at average days between an order, we want to keep these as separate actual purchase events, which is going to, because let's say you were to send 20 emails a day, for example, and that generated 20 orders, that would actually mean that your average days between orders is actually really small. And if we want to make that a more realistic example, maybe it's 20 emails a week, and we want to make sure that we're keeping that separate between order date tied to those specific sends. Hopefully that helps. And I can see the frustration there, but I think if we're going to be using the average days between order metric, we do want these to actually tie into that reporting correctly, even if it's skewing some of those events. Thank you for that question, Ellie. Next question here is from Katie. Is there any way on transactional email to have a one-click opt-in to your mailing list for non-subscribers? Katie, this might be somewhat different if you're in, EMEA, maybe like the UK and Europe specifically, with some of their opt-in, opt-out laws. Transactional emails within Klaviyo should actually not require someone to be opted into your mailing list. Now, you do generally have to write into support or your account manager at Klaviyo to get emails marked as transactional. This is within flows specifically. But if we go into the account and determine that, hey, for example, there's no hidden marketing message in this flow email, no matter who meets that criteria, if they are in your email database, they don't have to have opted in once or twice. So transactional emails should prevent this. And this is specifically actually marking an email as transactional within a flow. If you haven't had your actual emails marked as transactional, which you'll notice at the bottom of a flow email, you have kind of like placed order rate, or so you have smart sending, placed order rate. If you'll notice a little two-way arrow if transactional emails are turned on. And if they are, then it shouldn't matter whether someone is opted in or not. And then, guys, what I will say is thank you all so much for the questions. It was more than we thought, in a good way. I do have to end this on time so that you can get back to the next session. But again, we will be on this all day in terms of just social. We'll be on social all day tomorrow, as well as where we live. So if we didn't get to it, please. If there's follow-up information, please. I really appreciate the engagement. And also, if you come into the next session and say, hey, listen, I didn't get my question answered last time, I'll make sure I try and prioritize that. But thank you all very much. It's been a real pleasure. Hopefully some of the answers helped. And if not, we'll dig into them more on social. Thank you very much. Oh, and I guess I will say, actually, we have 30 seconds left. Allie, if you don't mind dropping that link into the chat, I would love the feedback. Would these Q&A sessions be helpful? Would they be helpful if they were more helpful? Either way, thanks a lot, guys.